at this marker.
We're inside of our house.
Yeah, it's day 3 of excavating.
Aloha friends, I know it's been a while since our last video, so here we are with some exciting updates and news.
Yeah, we've been receiving some comments from you folks and some emails asking for updates. I think it's been about 8 months since our last update video, so we've got some things to share.
Yes, and many of you might be wondering, what in the world were we doing all this time and why are we not making any videos? Well, the truth is we've been really busy, first of all with our jobs, with the work we're doing on the property, growing, taking care of things that we already planted. We have had some fair share of sickness this year, and we have been waiting for our houseplants to be approved. What else?
Well,
I mean, homeschooling, just life.
Yeah, so many things.
So many things, yes. And as it always goes, we've been going through some low times, some discouragement, and some high times. Right now we're kind of on the high. We're excited. Some things are happening here, which we're really happy to share with you today. As usual, there has been a lot of waiting going on. Like I said, we've been waiting for the permits, and we've been praying really hard to get the permits as soon as possible, because sometimes it takes, up to a year?
Well,
you could be waiting.
Recently it's been 12 months to get through the county with a permit.
Yes, so God has answered our prayers, and our plans have been approved just a few months ago.
Yeah, well, there was a providence. I mean, God really worked in our behalf with the permits, because we were trying to get those expedited as soon as possible. And so I was writing to the mayor and to the head of the planning department and all those things, because they had made a commitment several years back, realized we lost our home in the lava flow 4 years ago. So they had made commitments that they would expedite permits for those who had lost their homes in the disaster. And when our time came around and we finally had the resources and everything to submit a permit, we were told repeatedly that they had discontinued that program, and sorry, you guys were too slow to get your permits in, but we just decided to discontinue it.
Yeah.
So that happened, and I had, persisted in emailing for a little bit and got the same answer, and so we kind of just stopped and went on with other things in our lives, other aspects of ordering things for the house and trying to decide on this and that, and
lots of decisions.
Working real hard at the job, and so 3 months passed, and I just felt impressed one day when I was praying, hey, you know what? You ought to email those folks again in leadership. And so I emailed again, and to my surprise, I got a different response this time, and it was delegated to another individual in county leadership. Mm-hmm. And they got back to me and they said, hey, we made a mistake. You were supposed to get prioritized permit approval or processing. And so they said, we'll do it right now. And within just a very short period of time, a
week or two.
Yeah, we had our permits approved. And so that was kind of a miracle of sorts.
It was a miracle and a big providence.
And it was also very interesting that, I had that impression during prayer, email those guys. And if I hadn't done that, I mean, we'd still
We
be
would have been
sitting
waiting.
around probably till next spring.
Yes.
So we feel very fortunate that that was one of the things we were able to move forward on.
Yeah, and right after that, now we have our permits, but we didn't really have anybody lined up to build the house. So now we kind of went to work looking for people, and it was really hard to find anyone at first, and we had some discouraging times,
Yeah.
Here we are ready, but, well, almost ready, but...
Well, yeah, as far as the builders, we had been working with someone loosely over the last year that we really hoped could build our house for us. And sort of they were like, hey, check back with us in 3 months. Oh, we think we might be able to fit you in, this and that, this and that.
Yeah.
So we did all that, and basically everything fell through. And they said, we're too busy. It'll be another 12 months before we could even possibly build your house. We contacted other reputable builders, and they were like, 14 months, 12 months. And we were just like, oh my goodness, there's no way. We just kind of, quote, like wasted, 10, 12 months waiting on somebody, and it all fell through. And then everybody else is telling us, okay, you're going to start from now, wait another 12 months. We just couldn't really take that. And so I kept reaching out to all kinds of people. And I don't know, I mean, I probably, just the contractors for building was probably like 20 different ones at least that I was talking to at that point. And somebody said, okay, we can do it definitely, and we can start in September, and we can do this and that. So then I trusted them for a little bit, and then they didn't come through on anything they said. They, they could never get the estimate in, they could never do this, they could never do that. They never called when they said they would call. It was just a disaster, and after a couple months of that, it was like, shoot, we got to move on. We can't just be stationary here. All the while realize that all the costs are just exploding on, I mean, absolutely crazy prices on everything, from concrete going up to this and that and lumber, and everything was really wild. And so every month that you wait, you're losing many, many thousands of dollars. Some months I kind of was like, that went up $10,000, that went up. So, when you're trying to build a house out of debt, the thousands really matter. And so when you're unfortunately waiting on people who don't come through, that's costing you a lot of money, and so that can be very stressful.
And it's very discouraging as well.
Oh yeah, very discouraging. So anyhow, we decided, okay, we're doing a different approach. Unless anybody really shows, that they're committed, we don't take their word for it. If we just can keep asking all kinds of competitive bids, et cetera, working with all these different people, trying to figure out who's available, when are they available, et cetera. And so by God's grace, slowly sort of a team began to form. Okay, we can use these guys for excavating, and these guys for concrete, and these guys, because we're owner builders. And so since we're owner builders, we have a lot of the responsibility on us to coordinate. Now ideally, we would have loved for somebody to just handle all of it for us, one general contractor, do it all. But we found that the costs were just astronomical. I mean,
we have limited funds for sure. I wanted to mention something while Ryan was saying all these things, how everything's going up, and it's just, we always kind of joke together that we're building the house in an impossible time. So when we do build this house, the glory is not going to be ours. It's going to be to God for bringing us through this, because this is literally impossible, especially building it out of debt.
Yeah, here in Hawaii, at this time with inflation, there's a building boom, so all the builders aren't available. There's only a few builders on the island. I mean, it's like Mission Impossible. But we're not just relying on ourselves, we're relying on God. And so we often go to Him and say, look, we really appreciate what you've done for us, but we're going to really need you to do the heavy lifting here, because we're pretty weak and frail, and we have limited...
We can only do so much.
We can only do so much, and God has been coming through, often at the last minute.
Yes, as He always does.
Often at the last minute,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of knowing that God will come through at the last minute, it kind of gives you hope. Like a lot of times I would think, okay, we don't have the money now, or we don't have the guy building the builder now, but just, maybe when we're done with the concrete, something will come up, and sure enough, that is how God worked things out.
So finances are always a challenge, I think, generally when you're building a home, but when you're trying to limit your exposure to debt, I mean, it's even harder. But we have, by God's grace, over these months, been saving up for like breaking ground, doing all these various projects, and so we've been working at our jobs, trying to save faithfully, etc., etc. We saved up enough money to do a particular leg of the project, which was basically excavating, foundation, including concrete and all that stuff. And then it was like all the money was going to run out because it was probably the cost of doing this phase is about close to double what we anticipated that it would be, or that it probably would have been about 2 years ago.
Yeah. So again, here we are at the end of that road, right? That's where God usually comes through.
Yeah, so we committed everything, including our emergency fund, to this phase of the project. Like we usually like to have, a buffer, right? Like some months of living expenses set aside in case of emergency. But we were like, in order to move forward, we were going to have to like spend everything. So we committed everything, and then we went to God and we said, Lord, we're gonna spend it all, and we need you to come through for us. And He did. So what we intended on doing was selling our previous property for whatever we could get for it to help finance some portion of the construction. Yeah. And so we had intended on this, but it kind of looked like it was more of something that far off into the future. But we decided, hey, we gotta go, we gotta move with the project. And so we thought, even though we didn't want to get any loans, for example, let's go ahead and apply for a loan so that we can get funds, so that if we need them, short-term funds, and then later at some point we'll sell our other property and we'll get some funds, we'll pay back the loan, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. Now, we've always been averse to using the property as collateral for any type of a loan, because just we're heading into a new recession. There's just a lot of unknowns, and we lost a home 4 years ago to the natural disaster. We wouldn't want to set ourselves up where we could potentially lose our home due to some kind of financial downturn, unemployment, etc. And so we applied for a personal loan, and they asked, how much would you want, etc., etc. And so I put in there a rather large amount, and I got a call back from the senior lending officer at this credit union. And they said, we don't really loan that high of amounts for unsecured loans. And I said, well, why don't you run it by the underwriter and see what they'll give us? Yeah. Well, anyway, they asked for some financial documents, this and that and this and that. They just said over the phone, maybe we'll need collateral of your vehicle or something, right? Mm-hmm. So then they called back like 2 days later and they said, hey, ran it by the underwriter. We are going to approve you for the full amount. The amount, of course, that they never loan. Yeah. And we're going to do it without any collateral, and we're going to give you 3.49% interest,
which is a miracle.
Which is a miracle, considering that I'd talked to some other lenders and I looked online, and I saw that locally, at least, even if you have good credit, it starts at like 7.5%, and it goes up to like 14%. So that was really a blessing. Well, then, like the next day or two,
literally the next day,
we heard that regarding this property, that basically that property is going to go into escrow, and so that is incredible. We may not even end up needing this loan, but we grabbed it anyway, right. Because it's kind of like we figured, look, it's go time. Yes. We're going to just plow forward with the building of this home as God opens the way, and then we'll sort it out later. Yeah. Maybe we'll either use the loan, not use the loan, we don't know. Yeah. But
that was definitely a miracle, and we've been definitely praying for that specific miracle. We knew it was going to be a miracle to happen now, and so God came through.
Yeah, and you know what that reminds me of? And that reminds me of is that many, many times when we're asking for God for miracles or help us financially or whatever it is, He wants us to make a commitment, right?
Yeah. Do the first step, yeah?
Yeah, like do what you can do, right? So we had all this money, and I'm sure we would have liked to have put it aside for an emergency fund or kept it aside, but we said, no, we're going to put it all in on the project. And then when basically had zero,
Yeah.
then God opened not only this loan, but the sale, and not only that, but beyond the financial, we talked about the contractors,
Yeah.
and we found somebody who could start like basically within a couple weeks on the excavation and foundation. And then we had all these outrageous quotes for the contractors for the actual like building, framing, roofing, all that
Right.
stuff. And we found a good one, and they came up with a good bid. And then we talked to them, and they were able to lower the bid. It turned out that our schedules matched like perfectly. Right
Yeah.
after this one guy finishes pouring concrete, the next week those guys are available, and they will take it. We hired them basically for 6 weeks to do the exterior shell. It's like a dry-in.
Right.
And so that'll be like
The
walls,
walls, the
doors,
roof.
windows, roofing.
Yeah, just not the interior.
Yeah, so the interior will still be a skeleton, but that's what we've paid, or at least we've committed to for
Right.
this point. And so that's amazing.
Yeah, and so I think somewhere at the end of January, we should have an actual house standing. And that is extraordinary to me.
Yeah, that's going to feel...
Going from, nothing's working out, no money, nothing, and then now God is opening up all the doors. So being patient and praying definitely pays off.
Yeah, so we've owned this property for a little over 2 years now, maybe 2 years and
Yeah.
4 months or something like that. And, we've been like, planting stuff and trying to keep it up and beautify. But it's kind of, there's been like no development,
construction,
no
yeah.
construction. And then, of course, we did stuff like fencing, and that
Yeah.
was wonderful, and we did a driveway. But now, we're going to show you in a couple minutes here,
Yeah.
that now we have stuff going on the property that's like, whoa, something's actually happening. It feels different.
Oh yeah.
It feels encouraging.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and show them.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick overview. So we've just recently extended this driveway to a future garage site. Right over here, we now have the house foundation, which is a work in progress, but we're making very good progress. We've got a new septic system, which will be finished later today. We have a water catchment for rainwater harvesting foundation that's going up here. And we have what's going to be like a pump house for all of our equipment, right? For the rainwater harvesting system, filters, UV lights, all that kind of stuff. So that's it in a nutshell. And this has all taken place probably in the last, I don't know, maybe like 4 weeks or something.
Even less.
Yeah. So let me just explain to you just a little bit about the foundation. Here in this region of the island, there's very deep and soft soil. And unlike most of it that has more of like a rock foundation underneath because of the lava flows in the past. And so as a result, the county requires some additional excavating. So we had to actually remove an additional 2 feet of soil from the site. And then we had to bring in 18 dump trucks full, very large trucks full of various sizes of gravel and rock. And then, so that would make like a firm foundation. And then at that point, we had the folks came in from plumbing and did their rough-in plumbing, dug up and put their pipes here and there for drain. And then after that, we just recently had, last Friday, we had termite folks come out and they sprayed the foundation. It's like a pre-slab treatment that they do. And then we covered it up with a vapor barrier, 6 mil, and now we're doing rebar. So this rebar is, going to take a few days more, and we'll get that all in place, and then we'll have an inspection, and we'll start getting some basic electrical for the foundation and that sort of thing in place as well. And then in a few weeks, we're going to get our concrete pour. Now, septic's right over here. It's turning out beautifully. We're going to show you a couple of aerial photos of some of the work that we've done here recently. But that's where we are so far. We were able to figure out where our future garage would go, which is going to be right over in here. We did not include this as part of this house package or this house design at this point, primarily because costs have exploded so much that we thought if we separated this into another project, it would help us actually move into the house quicker. And so that's why we're putting that on the side for the moment. So here we're going to put a 15,000 gallon rainwater harvesting like cistern or catchment tank as it's locally called. And so we're doing a concrete foundation for that. a ring, and then we'll put sand, and then we'll build the walls, and we have all of that purchased and ready. Okay, so here behind us is basically our pump house, which is going to be sort of the center of activity for the water pumps, the pressure tanks, the UV filters, the charcoal filters, all of that. That's going to purify the rainwater and funnel it to the house. And so we're going to have sort of a section here for that, and then right behind it over here will be a separate entrance where it will be for our garden tools and storage of those kind of items, fertilizer, etc. So in here, eventually, we're going to use these concrete blocks, and we're going to build some raised beds for some vegetable gardens. And so that's what we anticipate being right around here.
Well, friends, that's it for our exciting update today. We're also planning on making another video here on the property showing you the property tour, as we try to do every year, and see the progress. If you're new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe if you'd like to follow our story. And we'll see you guys next time. Aloha and God bless.